You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Brooks Running has a new shoe for you runners out there. Did you hear that? Better turn up your volume. In fact, turn it up to the max. Introducing the all-new Ghost Max. It's got all kinds of things to make your knees and ankles feel protected, like Max Cushion, Max Soft Landings with DNA Loft V2 foam, and Max Smooth Rides with their Glide Roll Rocker. Feel better on your run with Ghost Max. Learn more at brooksrunning.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Is this a bonus episode? Why, yes, indeed it is. It is part one of a two-part bonus episode featuring my dude, Charles from Silktone Amps. We recorded here, several months ago, and it was a really great episode where we got to know Charles a lot better and get his story, and I really encourage you to go back and listen to that one if you have not. But I had to bring him back on the show because as soon as we got done recording the first one, he was talking to me about the podcast and telling me he really enjoyed the original episode I did with Robert Keeley way back in the day, which has long been a fan favorite episode. And he said, my story is very similar to his. And I thought, well, we should probably talk about that because the podcast is bigger now than it was then. And those type of stories of addiction and recovery have been a somewhat reoccurring theme on here, and I get a lot of messages and feedback that that people really enjoy hearing those stories, and they can be really helpful. So when Charles brought up the fact that his story was so similar, we immediately started saying, hey, well, you got to come back on. So he came back on, and we went for over 2 hours, I think, and this is the result of it. So I'm breaking it up into two parts. So this is part one, and part two will be available in the player like immediately afterwards. So I just broke it up to make it easier for people who are downloading and all that stuff. I've gotten some feedback saying that the longer episodes take, anyway, logistically, it just made a little more sense to go that way. So it's a two-parter. We'll see if that works better for more people. We'll see how it goes, but it should be available in your feed immediately when you're done with this one. So without further ado, let's get into this. I hope you enjoy it. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland, and I have returning my dude, Charles Henry from Silktone Amps. What's going on, man?
What's going on? Not much. Been busy.
Wasn't sure we were going to get to do this today. They were just running all kinds of equipment just right outside the shred shed, and it's double walled and has 2 layers of 5/8 drywall and all that jazz. But there's only so much you can do when it's literally 10 feet away, just wide open, full RPM wood chipping,
Right. I'm glad you have the kind of pull in your town to where you can just pop your head out the window and go, dudes, I'm doing a podcast here. Can you just, and they're going to come back next Friday or whatever.
It was more like, excuse me, sir. Are you guys done? Oh, it sounds like you're done. Are you done? Oh, you're done. Okay, good. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I won't be any more trouble. Thank you, sir.
They don't even respond. They're just looking at you.
Yeah, they were like, no, you're good. You're good. We're done. I'm like, cool.
Right on.
I wasn't gonna tell them to stop either. I'm not quite that guy.
They're gonna come over and start taking apart the shred shed.
They just start chipping it. They just start throwing pieces of it in the chipper.
Tell us to quiet down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really, and I made sure not to ask the neighbor. I asked the worker guy that was doing it because I don't ever want to be the neighbor that's complaining about noise in my neighborhood because,
oh my God,
not only do I not want to be that guy, but also I have jammed really loud, full blown, and because there's 2 doors in the shred shed, like a double door situation, I realized when I left that I accidentally didn't close the outside door, which is the door that seals out most of the sound. So it was basically like the door was open.
Oh, okay. So it
Yeah.
wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
not good. I've been
yeah.
lucky. In my place now that we just moved into, um, we're on the street. It's your traditional neighborhood, but it was a 3-car garage that was converted into like a studio and workshop environment before we even moved in. So it was like, oh my God, we have to grab this place. But it's not soundproofed, traditionally, but it works so well. We get so little road noise, and we smash on the drums in here and yell and jam, and I have to be loud with my amps to make sure everything's working properly. And we've tested it and gone across the street, and it's like whisper quiet. You can't hear anything. But before we got this place, well, actually the place before this, we were like up in the woods and nobody could hear us either. So that was really cool. But I've had such bad luck over the years. Like my first place was an apartment, and I would try and play music. I I was like 19 years old, and I stupidly got a Vox AC30 when I lived in an apartment, and I would try and play it. And I know it's loud, but for the first couple months we lived there, we didn't have anyone under us, so it was pretty chill. And then some people moved in, and it wasn't so chill anymore. So I stopped playing it at night. But then even at I'd be playing moderately at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, and the cops would show up, and it was like, what the hell? And the neighbors just at the drop of a pin would just call the cops on us. It was insane. To the point where I stopped playing guitar the whole time I lived there, just because it was such a hassle.
Wow.
Yeah, those people were a joke. So I hate being the one. I will never go to a neighbor and be like, can you guys keep it down?
Yeah, I just can't, because if it's not music, it's, I used to have this Nissan 240SX that had an engine swap in it, and it had basically not entirely straight piped exhaust, but basically. And every morning I'd get up for work at whatever time it was, 5:30 in the morning, and it'd be iced over, and I'd be like, well, I gotta warm it up. And it was loud.
Yeah.
And I did feel kind of bad, because I was like, I'm sure nobody wants to hear this right now, but I also
Right,
have to
yeah.
get to work. And and then I sold that, and I have a much more reasonable, regular old Toyota Corolla these days, but I still get the Camaro out of the garage once in a while, and it's not quiet either. And so I just have no room to be the guy that's like, pipe down, everyone.
Right,
it's usually me that's the problem.
Yeah.
But I do try to be conscious of it, and the shred shed is very, very isolated. I've done a lot of tests with it, and I can get it really ripping out here, and it's not going to bother anybody. So,
oh, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. When we were looking for places, there were a few beautiful places that we looked at that we were just like, this isn't going to work, because we knew we were going to be loud. And as nice as the places were and as good of a deal they were, it was, too close to other neighbors. That was a big consideration. So if we ever were too loud here and a neighbor came over and was like, hey, I'm trying to sleep or something, can you keep it down? I would totally understand and be like, oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, we are conscious of it, like you said, and we can rock pretty loud here.
Yeah, it's a luxury that I now can't really live without.
Yeah.
It's like, I have to be able to do this. And yeah, it's when people ask me what my favorite piece of gear that I own is, I'm like, the shred shed. Like for real, no joke. Yeah. Most of the other stuff would be kind of useless, right, if I didn't have that. So I love having the shred shed, and if it doesn't have to be as big as it is, but if I were to move, I would definitely be budgeting in another build of some sort. It doesn't have to be quite as tall and ridiculous, but I would definitely be budgeting in something.
So did you convert something that was there, or did you build the shred shed from nothing?
Nope, it was nothing.
Oh, wow.
was just an empty spot in the yard.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was like, well, I think it'll fit here, and it did. So yeah, it was quite a process. I was going to have it be like I was going to have it be a several year project, and just kind of do it as I had time. And then we found out we were having my first child, and it was like, wow, all this stuff needs to get out of the house immediately. So it became a priority, and I did manage to get it finished before he was born. So yeah, it's been really great. And then also, looking, I didn't know this at the time when I built it, but looking into the future, it was really, really important because I now have a place to work, and
Right. Yeah.
I've been working at home for several years, and doing what I do just simply would not be feasible if I had to do it in the house. So
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a little 1-bedroom house at our last place, and I grew out of it really fast when I started up Silktone. It doesn't take a lot. Like the smallest amount of production is like, oh crap, where'd my kitchen go? And it was we went from a little 1-car garage, and it was all of a sudden we had too much inventory, too many parts and we didn't even launch the amp at that point yet, but there was just prototypes laying around, and it was like, man, we need to get a bigger place here. So yeah, when we were looking for a place, it was either something that we could use where they had it already and we could convert it, like a big garage or a big shed in the back, or something with a lot of land where we could pop up like a shred shed type thing, like you did. I've always wanted to do that. That'd be awesome to build something from scratch.
Well, don't worry. Now, if you tried to do it in 2021, it would only cost 17 times what it would normally cost due to the...
Oh, Lord. I know. Jesus, everything. I've been... God, don't get me started. I've been hit left and right on material costs. It's insane. Wood, cabinets, my chassis and stuff for the amps skyrocketed. I had to order 5 times as much as I normally do, where I'm not producing that many right now, but I had to order that much just to get the attention, because they're like, one sheet. No, we'd rather deal with someone else. And it was insane. Just material costs everywhere through the roof. I hope it changes really soon.
I don't want to be a negative Nancy, but I don't think it's going to. I don't think that any of this stuff is going to stay crazy high, but I do think that our raw material costs are going to be permanently higher than they used to be.
That's rough.
Not to go off the rails, especially since I am not an economist, but when demand has not slipped for most things, in fact, it's gone up in a lot of respects, and the suppliers aren't able to supply due to, shutdowns or whatever, then that's what happens, and I wasn't really thinking about it, but in talking to a lot of pedal manufacturers, there weren't really any serious parts shortages in 2020. No. Because we were working off the suppliers that bought from the raw material providers. And now we're seeing this ripple effect of like, okay, the place that literally makes the plastic was shut down for the same amount of time. So, it took that long for us to see, those effects on, the microcontrollers and everything else. And I don't know, 20% of the current cache in the US system was created out of the blue in the last, 14, 18 months. I think we might be, I hate to say it, but I think we might be staring down the barrel of some 80s style inflation, which is kind of freaky, but that's what it looks like to me.
And that's rough because it takes a lot longer for it to settle back down, because even if the supply or, even if the manufacturing gets back on pace and and they can supply everything quick again, I don't see them quickly being like, okay, everything's normal price again.
Exactly. Well, I mean, if demand is still like that insane, you can't really do that. That's not how any of this works.
Everything. I hear a lot of people can't get speakers right now. My capacitors that I use in the amp fortunately I have a lot of them, but I tried to order more and they're all on back order until who knows when. And early or like mid last year, the transformer manufacturer that we were using shut down, and I know that affected a lot of people because a lot of people were using them. We were fortunate enough to have a custom design in production already with another company, so it didn't really affect us. But that's rough. Like everyone, just the shutdowns and then the demand on top of it. I know other transformer manufacturers got just bombarded with orders, and it was this huge backlog of like 6-7 months before you get a transformer, because all of a sudden they have this other company's orders now too.
It's so insane. It's just, I mean, and it's everybody I talk to across the board. And, fortunately, like with the string stuff, we went like super deep on inventory. And then recently we're just like, you know what? Go deeper.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. We're going to have, 6+ months. I don't even know how many months now, but like a long time of inventory on our hand. But you know what's worse? Not being able to make anything. So
exactly. Yeah.
It's just, let's go deep. The worst case scenario is we store our stuff all really carefully, and it's vacuum sealed and humidity controlled and blah 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 blah. So it's fine, and it's it's metal.
You'll use it eventually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's way better than not being able to get it.
Mm-hmm. But it's tough. It's tough because you can't do that with everything.
Right.
This is literally wire, so it's like there's a few different places to get it for the most part. Well, I'm actually not. Well, that's not entirely true, but still. Anyway, well, other than the woes of trying to get parts and whatnot, what else has been going on with you?
Oh, just been busy, man. Been super busy since we talked last. I've been doing a lot of demo recording, and I haven't released a lot yet out of this studio. But I got a new Apollo unit that's been pretty sweet, and then just production, like just hitting it hard with the social media thing, and we got a really great demo out. Ryan at Demos in the Dark, I've been talking to a lot. He released this amazing demo for us.
Oh,
and
I saw it. It was so good.
Oh, it's so good. I try not to be biased because I know it's my amp that he's representing, but I watched it a few times. It made me want to buy one. I was like, I think this might be the best amp demo I've ever seen.
He's very good.
So good.
He's a very good player, and he presents things really, really well. I like him a lot. He's a good dude.
It was cool. Yeah. And then he put me into contact with some cool friends, and we've been ramping up our dealer base, and it's been really busy. But it's been busy, but it's been kind of a weird couple weeks. It was I kind of just like hermited out in my house the last couple weeks just because it's been so weird with I've been trying to get as much work done as I can, but it was the 1-year anniversary of losing like my best friend and cousin last week, and I didn't think the anniversary would affect me as much as it did. I've always kind of said like I anniversaries are weird. It's when something sad like that happens, it's like whether it's 200 days or 365, who gives a crap? It sucks either way. But then it popped up, and like it was rough, man. Like we didn't get to do the memorial thing last year because he died on May 4th, 2020. So everything is shut down, social distancing, not allowed to have funerals, nothing like that. And so we did it this year, and everyone was kind of waiting for it. And like we had friends come out from New York and all over the place because he was a pretty major person in a lot of people's lives. And like the memorial was cool. It wasn't as super emotional as I thought it would be, because it was really chill. We hung at my aunt's bar in Oakland, where we all used to hang out. So it was kind of a, the perfect fit for a spot. And I got to see a lot of people that I was close with like 10 years ago that I haven't seen in a really long time. So that was like surreal and really weird. And it was really overwhelming in a lot of different ways. Like, one is the context of why we're there, like losing this major person in our lives. And then two is just the catching up with everyone I haven't seen. There's 20 people coming up to me that I haven't seen in 10 years that all want to talk. And I was so happy to see all of them that it was so overstimulating. And then three, it's like the first major social event I've been to since all the shutdowns
Right.
in 2020. So I was like, oh my God, I'm used to seeing like 3 people max, and now there's like 150 people here. This is insane.
Mm-hmm.
So that was crazy, but that was chill. But like the following days were just kind of heartbreaking. It was like feeling the loss of my cousin, but then also like after seeing everybody, just kind of feeling the distance that I have with a lot of my friends now. It kind of messed me up for like a week there.
Is it because, like, literally, and I don't mean this in the COVID sense, but like literally the physical distance because there's so many people across the country, or is it a personal difference, or what do you mean?
No, so a lot of it stems from a lot of different places, but it just lost connections. Not really because of the COVID thing, because I've kept pretty close with my the people I socialize with now, but it's just a lot of old contacts that we don't see each other for one reason or another. Like a couple people, like we all used to have moderate to major drug problems, and several of us have kind of gotten better with it, myself included. I've been clean for 8 years now, and when you are associating with people like that, you kind of have to steer clear in the beginning so that stuff like that doesn't pop back up. um a lot of people in the recovery world, they say cut off all your old contacts. I don't quite believe in that, because these are friendships that I've valued for a long time. But it makes it a lot easier to stay sober when you're not around people that you used to do a bunch of drugs with.
Right.
Yeah. So it's not like we broke everything off. We were like, oh, I can never talk to you again. It just kind of went that way.
Right.
That's why it was rough losing my cousin, because he never got into drugs like we did, but alcohol was really big for him. And yeah, that was a rough loss. We weren't really sure what it was. We were really afraid that it was COVID when it happened, because it was so sudden. It would just, he seemed okay one day, and then the next day he would just gone. Nobody knew why. But it turns out it wasn't COVID. It was just abuse of his body. It was crazy. But so that was really rough. And then so it was nice seeing people that are doing really well now also. Like, we were so happy to see each other, because it's like, oh my God, we were used to seeing each other on such worse terms. And
Right.
now it's like, oh my God, you're doing great. Like, we've all been following each other, and like a friend graduated from college, that was really cool. And then they're seeing what I'm doing with getting engaged and buying a house and starting up the business and everything, and just really happy for each other. So that was cool.
Yeah, part of the reason I wanted to get you back on was because when we hopped off last time, we were talking, well, we talked for quite a while, but one of the things you brought up was the Robert Keeley episode, specifically the first Robert Keeley episode of this podcast, which if people haven't listened to that, they may not know that Keeley also used to have some pretty serious drug issues with pills specifically, and he I'm sorry to rehash this for all the old listeners, but for any of the new listeners, it was a really eye-opening moment for me when he came on the show. I don't remember what episode it was, like maybe episode 7, like really, really early. We're on like almost 240 or 250 or something now.
Yeah.
And so it was really, really early. And I was sitting there thinking we were going to just talk about pedals, which we mostly did. And then all of a sudden we're talking about his substance abuse issues and how he was able to come out of that and the effects that it had on his life. And that was like a moment where I was like, wow, this whole podcast thing is really, really weird. And then you brought it up as, you know, you were like, oh yeah, that story really hits home with me because that used to be me too. And I was like, oh man, well, we got to talk about that, you know?
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason I wanted to have you come back on, because that has become somewhat of a reoccurring theme on the show is addiction and recovery. And it's not something that I have a lot of personal experience with myself, but I have had, you know, I've lost friends to drugs, and it's always really encouraging to hear a story like yours where somebody is able to come back from that. So if you are comfortable sharing that stuff, I think it can potentially help a lot of people, you know?
Oh yeah. I'm an open book. Like I don't mind talking about it. If anyone were in front of me, I'd be open with it. So yeah, why not talk about it here? It's interesting because yeah, like you said, I've lost a lot of friends to drugs, and it gets harder every time. And you know, back when I was using, we would lose people, and then you'd think it'd be kind of an eye opener, like, damn, I should stop doing this stuff, but it kind of just depresses you, and that's why you do it in the first place, right? So it doesn't make it easy to get off of it. The Like I said, with my cousin dying, that was the hardest hit because we were all doing okay. Like the last time we hung out, I say my cousin, he was more like my brother. Like a lot of people aren't as close with their cousins as I am. So I like to say like he's more like a brother to me. Like we're the same age. We grew up like side by side, me and my 2 other cousins. So when we lost him, it was this life shattering change, like right in the middle of all this other crazy stuff going on. And it made me think so much just about how some people can get away from it and some people can't. And then I started going through it with my brother too, just trying to that's what we were talking about last time, I think, off the air, with just how seeing people that are doing it now, and like me being so far away from it, it's so far out of my life now that like I'm not in any groups or anything like that. I don't do any kind of recovery system. I just kind of dove straight into the music and amp thing, and I was able to just completely put that other stuff out of my mind. Like I rarely think about it anymore, and I think that's so important for actually getting over something. Like I think a big reason a lot of people do that stuff is because a lot of times it's that I find it's obsessive personalities, and they become obsessed with this feeling or this drug, and it kind of just takes them over. Like the people who get really hard into it, and everyone I've seen that's tried to stop and fail, it's because they they they'll stop cold turkey or whatever and not really have anything else going on. So they have all this free time, and like they try and start a life now from scratch, you know, after being so into drugs. And it's so difficult if you don't have something else to kind of do. And I was really fortunate and really lucky to already have this like music and gear and amplifier building obsession, so I could kind of just sidestep. Like I just traded one obsession for the other and just dove straight into that. So the sorry, there's a million things running around in my head. I'm trying to keep all the webs together.
No, it's fine.
So yeah, like my brother has been great since we talked last. Like it was a huge problem during the last episode, and like he was struggling a lot, and then he's been basically totally clean since then, and he's living up here around us now, and so that's been really great. So it's good to see people do well, and the sorry, I lost track.
No worries. That's okay. I have a couple questions. So
Sure.
In regards to all this stuff, like obviously I think it's been well documented and well proven at this point that the whole, just say no, kids. Like that doesn't work. Like, that's not really a thing, like it doesn't,
Yeah.
I guess it not only does it make it more enticing to people who don't know any better, or, maybe they do and they just don't like being told no. Like there's all kinds of reasons why that program didn't really work. But more importantly, I feel like it ignores those that are already struggling. And I don't think there's enough focus even today, even though things are a lot better. I don't think there's enough focus on, just saying no doesn't like help anybody. You hear people all the time be like, well, they're just on drugs. They just need to get off the drugs. It's like, well,
it's ridiculous.
Well, sure. If it was that easy, then then we wouldn't have addiction problems. Like if it was just get off of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's crazy. I mean, my stuff spurred because the way I got into it and started is my stuff was doctor prescribed. I banged my head on something and they gave me a bunch of Vicodin or like extra strength Vicodin. And I tried that for the first time. So that's not like a just say no situation. You know what I mean?
No.
Like that's a doctor prescribed thing where it's, not some dude on the corner offering it. And I took it and was like, what the hell is this? Like, I want more. And it just, for some reason, clicked, and just at the time, just kind of grew from there. It started as a very, very casual thing. It's not like it was this raging addiction, like right from the get-go, but like most pill cases and stuff, it evolved into more serious stuff years later. It spanned over like 7 years, but there's such a taboo with drug addiction. Like people, you see someone on drugs or you hear that someone is addicted, and they almost start being treated like a leper, but that's not always the case. And people have this idea of drug addicts in their head, and they think of the, really hardcore, like homeless cases you see on the street or something, but it's normal ass people. Like I know so many people, and I dealt with so many people that just held a job at the grocery store, or like me, I always held a job. I was pretty functional. Half the people had no idea that I was on drugs until it became obvious. And then, yeah, like you said, there's nothing out there to kind of reel that in and get people off of it. There's AA and NA and stuff like that, but that's, I think it works great. It has a great track record of working for the people who adopt it and kind of let that take over all the time they use doing drugs. It wasn't something I was interested in, but there's really nothing else out there. I was talking about this with someone recently, and I think a lot of it is just stems back to mental health and self-esteem, and a lot of it is like diet. For me, a lot of it was like just diet and general health in general. Like I'll share here that like when I got off of it, there was a time like a year later that I used it again, and I wouldn't call it a relapse because it's not like my whole habits changed or anything. It was just like a one-time thing, and like, oh yeah, try that out again. And I hated it. It was terrible. It was so surprising. I was like, what the hell? Like, I used to like this. This is disgusting. I felt so gross. But I was thinking about it. And like, when I first got into it, I was so unhealthy, just like sat inside all the time, ate garbage, like just soda and fast food, like all the time. And I was really depressed. I was having panic attacks all the time. Like I was pretty young, like 19 years old, and just like very antisocial, and just the using the drugs kind of made me feel like everybody else. I was like, oh, this is how people like get on. Like
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. It was like, wow, this is what normal people must feel like. And it kind of lifted me up. So then when I had stopped, and then that year later, I was like the healthiest I've ever been. I was exercising, started rock climbing, stuff like that. And eating healthy, like going outside, being super social. So I was at like, the peak social part of my life, and feeling really good. And then I tried it again, and it brought me way down, and it was just like, oh, what the hell is this? So I thought that was really interesting. Just the effect, the different effect and feeling I felt at two different times in my life with the same drug.
Yeah, I don't mean to compare this at all, because I have a weird something going on. I too, I've been prescribed things, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And I didn't like take them really. Like I took them at first thinking that they were going to help my pain because I had a serious accident. And they didn't really. I was like, it still hurts just as bad. So why am I taking this? You know what I mean? And then like I have a very strange relationship with smoking, and I've talked about it before. Like I used to smoke not like a crazy amount, but maybe a half a pack a day at my peak, which is not that much compared to some people, but
right,
it's decent. And I really liked it. Like I was like, this is great. I like smoking.
Yeah.
smoking is wonderful. And like I had this weird thing where one day I bummed a cigarette from my friend, and I was like halfway through it, and I was like, I'm not really enjoying this. It actually like tastes gross.
Yeah.
And then I never really have. I've tried them like a handful of times. This is years ago. Since then, and every time it's like I'll take a drag and be like, no, that's still gross. Like I can enjoy my 2 or 3 times a year cigar, and that's fine. I still like those.
Right.
But like cigarettes, for some reason, where some people struggle so hard with it, I was just like, I don't even want to have this anymore. And it sounds sort of similar to the second time, or the I guess not relapse, but the time you tried after quitting. It was like, ew, I don't want this anymore.
Yeah, disgusting. Yeah, I did it for the rest of the weekend, and then I was done. Yeah. It was no, that's funny. Cigarettes were the hardest thing for me to quit, because I've done most of it. And I'll say cocaine, for instance, when I worked at my very poppin' bar in Oakland, I'd work there a few nights a week, and I partied, everyone hung out. It was early 20s, and I did cocaine all the time. It was like 9 months straight. So not that long of a time for other, people with big problems that I know. But like one day I did it, and it gave me a little bit of a headache, and it was uncomfortable. And I was like, ugh. And I just kind of threw it out the window and was like, never doing that again. and that was it. Like there was no struggle. There was no anything. I was just like, oh, that was annoying, and then I was done.
It's so weird how different drugs and different people like connect like in a different way. It's so weird. I don't know what that is, where some people can just be like, some people can casually use hard drugs. I'm not suggesting that you should. I'm just saying that some people can, and it's weird. I'm like, how? Yeah. But then other people, it totally wrecks their life.
Yeah, that's how I felt with like the cocaine thing. I would see people with a big problem, and I'm like, what's the problem here? Like, it's fun sometimes, but okay, whatever. I just set it right down. But then opiates, it's like it keeps drawing me back in. And then, but smoking cigarettes, that took more tries than anything else. Like, it wasn't as hard physically and mentally to actually like stop and kick, because when I got off of opiates, there was about a week of withdrawals, and it sucked. It was terrible. It was the worst week ever. I basically just locked myself in my room and watched Disney movies and bawled my eyes out over like Up and stuff like that.
Well, Up and making anybody cry. Like, hey,
I know
come on.
it's not enough as it is, but then like crazy like withdrawal emotions on top of it. It's just like, oh my god. And
sounds
so
terrible.
it was bad. So now I'll be at Disneyland and like hear that music come on, and I'm like, oh,
Oh no, you shocked your system.
yeah. But that, once I actually did it and got through, because a big part of it after a long time is just I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. I don't want to be sick. So you keep doing stuff.
Right.
So once I finally like stopped that and got just went through it and got over it, I was like, damn, I'm never doing that again. I'm not going to put myself in that situation again, because now I feel okay and it's not like, calling me back. With cigarettes, holy crap, I tried to stop 25, 30 times before it actually took. And when it did take, it wasn't even voluntary. Like it I think because that habit, because I was smoking like a pack a day, and that, that's way more often than I would do other drugs. That was, once a day, once every couple of days, whatever. But with the cigarettes, it's become such a habit, it's a social thing. It's a relaxation thing. You do it after everything. You wake up, you have a cigarette, you eat, you have a cigarette afterwards. You have a good idea, you go have a cigarette. You think about something, you have a cigarette.
You have a meal. Yeah. The whole thing.
Yeah. Driving was a big one for me. Commuting like I was doing at the time, I would smoke the whole time I was driving. So quitting was just like what do you do with your time? Like, this isn't the time I would go outside and have a smoke on the back porch, and then that's just gone. So I kept going back to it. And, it doesn't really ruin your life the way other drugs do. So
well, it's legal
and it's legal. Yeah.
And you see other people doing it, and you don't have to like hide it. You don't have to be like, oh, I hope nobody sees me smoking a cigarette. You can just do it wherever you want to do it for the most part.
I'm in California.
Well, I mean, I'm in Oregon. It's not that much different, but like for the most part, you can just you can find outside relatively easily. So
I was going to work one day, and I had to catch the BART train to get out to Oakland, and I knew exactly what time the train showed up, and I was going to be right on time because I hate waiting for BART. So I went up there, but I stepped on the curb with a cigarette still lit, and I was going to put it out. So I took a puff and I went to put it out before I ran up to my train. And I'm not even on the platform. I'm on the public street, and then I'm going into the BART station, and a BART cop stopped me and said, "Oh, there's no smoking here." And he held me up. He didn't write me a ticket. He just held me there and detained me long enough to miss my train and be late for work.
Oh, geez.
Oh, it's such a pain. So yeah, they're pretty strict about that these days, as far as smoking in public, which is good. Nobody should smoke around other people. You shouldn't force other people to inhale all your stuff.
I mean, I think it's generally good. I do think that it gets taken a little bit too far sometimes, where it's like, I am 40 feet away from you. You will be fine.
I do think people need to calm down about, probably a lot of things, but it is what it is. But the reason I stopped smoking finally is because I had a tooth infection that I didn't know about, or a bad cavity. And a friend came over while I was on a kick where I stopped smoking. So I was like, oh, I'm not going to smoke, but I'll smoke socially. And a friend came over and I was like, oh, want a cigarette? And I was like, sure. And I took one hit of it. And after that hit, for 17 hours, I was in excruciating pain to the point where I was like crying, because I don't know, it got in my tooth somehow, and it was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So I had to wait to get an emergency appointment with the dentist, and they had to extract the tooth. And after that, I was like, cool, I'm done.
Right.
not doing that ever again.
So I guess, you talked about like how you got started with opiates, but it sounds like you had done a lot of other stuff too. What would you say to somebody like let's just hypothetical. I don't know if you have kids or not. Do you have kids?
I don't. We're talking about maybe having one, so that's been interesting lately.
So what, knowing that this could, because you had a lot of exposure to family and friends that have had issues with this stuff, what do you think you would tell a child that would actually be beneficial instead of just say no, like
man.
all the 90s garbage that we grew up with?
Yeah. So are you a fan of South Park?
Not really. It sounds
really?
kind of weird because I know so many people that love it, but like every time I've tried to watch it, I'm like, there's bits, and I think I think South Park it's one of those things that's more fun to recite later than it is to at the time you're watching it. That's how I feel about South Park.
I don't know. So I'm a really big South Park fan. I haven't watched it in a while, but I've seen every episode multiple times. And behind all the crazy controversial jokes and fart jokes and dick jokes and all that stuff, there are really, really deep life lessons in those episodes. Like they get deep sometimes, and they hit it home so hard. Like they have their finger on the pulse with a lot of stuff, and they're so topical and current. The reason I bring that up is you asked me that, and I think they put it best in their Future Self and Me episode, where there's an episode where Stan, the parents are trying to keep the kids off drugs, and they don't know how to talk to him about it. So they put this stupid program together where they trick the kids into thinking their future selves come back, and they're all drug addicted and junkies, and they're like, so the kids will be afraid and stay off drugs, And at the end of the episode, the kids are pissed because they're like, why didn't you just fucking talk to us about it? Like, and they finally like break it down, and they go, like throughout your life, you're going to get offered drugs. And if you take one hit of pot, it's not going to destroy your life and turn you into some, junkie turning tricks on the corner. But if you get into pot, it'll prevent you from doing things and developing hobbies that you should be doing, and doing healthy things and productive things as a growing human should, like it makes you content when you otherwise wouldn't be, it makes you okay with being bored and sitting around and doing nothing. So it's best to avoid because of that. Like you'd be way better off learning guitar, learning, getting into sports or rock climbing or whatever. And that one always kind of stuck with me because I was like, damn, yeah, that's super true.
Because that happened to you. Like, I imagine, based on this conversation, you were just kind of soothing the boredom in a weird way.
Mm-hmm. Soothing the boredom and anxiety. Yeah, the anxiety was a big part of it for me. Like I had such a problem in my teen years with anxiety. I would go on weird like existential death trips in my head and stuff like that. And I was like, what's the point of everything? Everyone's going to die someday. And I get kind of lost in that and have anxiety attacks or panic attacks or whatever. And the drugs kind of put a stop to that. That's why I kind of, felt so at home.
And taking this a step further, you mentioned the trying to find something to occupy your time with, when you are trying to quit, or, getting healthy just in general.
Right.
What about if somebody happens to be listening to this right now that is in the same place you were, which there's a non-zero, not a zero chance, or what am I trying to say? There's a good chance that there's somebody that is hearing this right now that is going through that. What would you say to them? Like, what would your advice be to somebody that's like right in the throes of it?
Right. Don't wait for anybody else to pull you out of it. You have to do it yourself. And it's very hard. Like I said, I feel very lucky to have an obsession and an interest in something like guitar amps that is healthy like that. But you have to just find something. You have to go out and find something else that you love, because it would make it so much easier if you had something you're looking forward to, and a reason to get clean. um I talk to a lot of people that have that either have a problem, or most everyone I know has somebody that they know that has a problem, a family member or anything like that. And it's always hard for them because people want to say stuff that will change someone's mind, you know. And I had so many people tell me, "Oh, you need to stop doing this. You need to stop doing this. Don't you know how bad it is?" And it's like, "Oh, never thought of that," you know. But nothing anybody could have said would have changed my mind at the time. Like I thought that I would never stop at the time. It was just something I liked doing, and there's nothing I was going to change. Um, I don't think there's anybody. I don't think there's anything anybody can say to someone else. And this is more of a message for those people out there with
Loved ones,
with loved
friends,
ones
or whatever.
Yeah,
Mhm.
there's. It's not. Do what you can to show appreciation for those people, and don't treat them like a leper, because they're human beings, even though they have a problem. But it's not your responsibility. It's not other people's responsibility to get someone else clean, because it's like talking to a wall. Like there's nobody can do it except for the person involved. You have to get to that point on your own. Um, and that's the only way that I've ever really seen it work. I don't. I'm a moron about this stuff. I don't. It's not like I have all the knowledge about it. This is just what I've seen in my life, and what I've seen work, and what's worked for me.
Well, I mean, that is an extremely valid viewpoint, though, because most people don't have any knowledge of what to do. Like I said, a lot of people will just be like, "We'll just get off drugs then."
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phil.
Yeah. Thanks.
Or
Thanks,
Phyllis, or whoever. I don't know.
Thanks, Richard. Never thought of that. No, I know. I mean, but people have that mentality with a lot of different stuff. It's like I have a problem. I still struggle with depression here and there. Not like crazy sadness depression, but just more like a laziness kind of depression, and procrastination and stuff like that, where I I nothing sounds better than just sitting and doing nothing. Uh, and I talk to certain, because I'm like, I'll want to do stuff, and there'll be stuff that I need to get done, but I'm not even doing the stuff that I want to do. Like, so how am I supposed to do the stuff that I don't want to do?
Right.
And I talk to a lot of people, and they're like, just do it. You just got to do it. And it's like, never thought of that. Like, yeah, you're right. It's so easy. Nike had it all along. But it's just, I think a lot of it is neurological. You get set in your ways, and your coping mechanisms and stuff like that, where so many people are just content on scrolling on their phone, on their social media, or whatever. And myself, I'm guilty of that too. um and it's just an escape kind of thing. So it makes it a lot easier to sit and do nothing. And it's just a matter of changing patterns, and that goes back to drug use too. You start doing these, you start up with these destructive habits, and they I think they like shape your neural pathways in ways that other things don't do as fast. Um, and it becomes so hard to break that habit. But I think ultimately that's all it is a habit. And if you can kind of, like I said, like sidestep into something else, and just really like crush those habits, it makes it a lot easier. But like I said, I don't think there's anything anyone can say to another person. Like, I've never seen guilt work. That's just ridiculous. Uh, I've never seen pleading work. That's also ridiculous. But you know, support can work. Like, help people find other things to do. I've seen it a lot easier for people if they just have a foundation to grow on. And like a lot of my friends that have succeeded in kicking drugs, they just dove straight into basically a new life, just like got a job, got a girlfriend, got a new obsession, and they find things that they really love and just go for it, um, be it guns or motorcycles or music or extreme sports or whatever, but they just kind of dive into something. And I know that's hard because I know a lot of people out there that aren't really that interested in a lot of stuff, and that's why they end up doing that. So it's really hard to find something like that, but um,
And that's hard for me to wrap my mind around.
gotta
You
keep
know what I mean?
looking.
Because
Yeah.
I have too many hobbies, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm interested in that I purposely have avoided going down the rabbit hole with, because that will turn into another thing where, I'm like, I'm super interested in coffee, but I also I don't know that much about coffee, because I know for a fact if I go down that rabbit hole, I'm going to need to build another shred shed so I can roast all my beans, like that's just how I am. And I have a feeling that if I found a drug that really clicked with my brain, which I'm not looking for one, but if I did, then
Right.
I would also run into that same problem. I think I have that type of
Yeah.
personality.
Yeah, I have a few I could show you if you're interested, but
No, I'm
it's
good.
not-
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. I made it this far. I think I'm all right.
No, dude, coffee's a big one. That was, and it's funny because coffee culture is big in the recovery world as well, because it's kind of the one socially acceptable drug. And I will say that this is interesting. I tried to quit coffee, and because I drink a lot of coffee, like 5 years ago, I got on, a health binge and a health kick, and um, one of my other cousins also, trying to convince me, like, dude, cut out coffee. Like, you'll feel great. Like, it'll suck for a week, but then you'll feel great, and you won't have this anchor, like, that you have to wake up and drink every morning and blah 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 blah. And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. It was the worst thing I've ever done, and I'll never do it again. It was so terrible. And I tried to find out why, because I thought I was just being a wuss, because I was like, I've kicked harder stuff. I've kicked opiates, and I've done all that, and coffee, no problem. I'll have a headache for a few days and that'll be it. So about 5 days in, I was like bawling on the couch, just like mentally out of my mind.
Really?
And so at that point, I was like, screw this. Like, if this is having this big of an effect on me, I do not want it in my body. I'm going to keep at it. 7 days, like, should be good. So like day 13, I was like worse than ever, just like getting suicidal almost, like, just like not suicidal, but just like, what's the point of everything? And just like, this is stupid. And oh my God, just this huge mental depression came over me. And, I was just like, this isn't worth it. It's been 13 days. If this isn't going anywhere, I'm done. I had a sip of coffee and literally immediately leveled out back to normal.
How much of that do you think is the substance, and how much do you think is the mental game that comes along with that substance?
So
with coffee in particular,
I was so interested in that I looked into it. So I was like, why the hell was that so terrible? Why did that have such a big effect on me? And apparently caffeine works on your opioid receptors the same way that opiates do. So I don't know if it was because of my past history with those like neurotoxins, or if it's just caffeine in general. Because I've been drinking coffee and caffeine, Coca-Cola, stuff like that, since I was like very young, like 4 or 5 years old. We were always allowed to have soda and stuff like that. And then it turned from soda into coffee. So I guess I was like 30 when I tried to stop. So it was basically 25 years of this addiction I had been feeding with caffeine. So my body has never, ever, 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 ever known how to work without caffeine, and it latches on to those like neuroreceptors. I don't know if I'm using the terminology right, but what I remember from my reading is after that long of a time needing it and then trying to just cut it out all of a sudden, it throws your body into the same kind of like withdrawal, and like your endorphins and your serotonin just are completely regulated by caffeine. So in the same way that opiates do that. So I was lucky enough to, when I stopped opiates, I had only been doing it like, a lot for like 3 or 4 years. So I was able to stop, and it sucked for a week. And then I wasn't depressed after that. I know people that have been doing it for 20 years, and there's no way they could do it without methadone or something like that, because 20 years of your serotonin being regulated by that stuff, it's like, yeah, you're not sick anymore, but now you're a depressed wreck for 6 months, and nobody's going to want to go through that. So your body has to learn how to readjust to all that stuff. And that's where methadone clinics and stuff like that come in. I was lucky enough to not need it, but I know a lot of people that do, and there's no way that someone doing it that long should try and do it without it, I think. Because it wipes you out. So
that gets into the real, I mean, not that you didn't have the real physical addiction too, but that gets into like what you're talking about with caffeine, where you've been doing it so long, your body like almost considers it a necessity. Like,
it doesn't know how to
like
do
water.
It. It literally doesn't know how to regulate your serotonin without it. And that's what makes you feel normal and happy. So from my reading, I was reading that if I did keep not drinking coffee, it would, regulate itself out after like 3 or 4 months. But there's no way I'm ever going to give up 3 or 4 months of my life. Coffee's not that big of a problem. I tend to enjoy it. So,
right.
So yeah, I just thought that was interesting to bring up, because that took the biggest toll on me mentally, just like trying to quit that. So yes, I very much love coffee. It keeps me together. I get serious with that stuff. Like, I got a crazy brewing setup, and I have a lot of coffee
I'm trying
friends.
to avoid.
Oh man, it's so good. I love trying out new beans. One of the necessities for moving to the new spot we did was, okay, where's a good coffee roaster around? Like, because I can't handle Starbucks or anything like that. Like, I need like fresh roasted stuff that is done right. Because when it's good, oh my god, it's so noticeable. But it really is. I have a fancy grinder. I grind it right before I brew it, and it's phenomenal. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah, see, I really, really like that stuff. And I live in Portland, so there's plenty of it around. And I don't know about any of it.
They're into coffee in Portland?
Yeah, did you hear that? Did you know that? Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah. I don't know hardly any of it. But I do know like my favorite coffee spot in Nashville, and then I found a new one in Kansas City here recently called Second Best that was just amazing. Barista parlor in Nashville, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but I'm really concerned that if I do get heavily into it and I find something I really like here, that it'll just be like, well, this is a new thing that I have to do. And I could see myself just going right off the edge. So I've drank really poor to medium quality coffee for most of my life. Especially when I had a regular job, I drank it every single morning.
Yeah.
But once I started working for myself and got on my like preferred sleep schedule, which is just the ultimate luxury of all luxuries. Thank you, everybody, for making that a possibility. I didn't really need it when I woke up in the mornings, and now I go so long in between having it that when it's kind of nice, because now caffeine does what it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't used to be just like, I need this to help me wake up. Now it's like, I really need a boost for this workout, or I'm kind of dragging today, and it actually like works.
Yeah.
And I went for a long time where it's like 300 milligrams, that's not enough. I'm gonna need 6. And now it's like a cup of coffee really perks me up. It never used to. Like, most of my life after when I was a teenager, I mean, it was really weird. When I was a teenager, I would drink 3 of those large rock stars like every Friday night and go home and sleep like a baby. If I did that now, I'd be like a crackhead.
Oh my God. Yeah. Same thing. I used to drink coffee all hours of the day up until I'd be sipping on it at bedtime and go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I had sleep issues that I wasn't addressing, but not that bad. Nowadays, like I try not to have any after like 2 p.m., but I'll go up to like 4 p.m. if I didn't have any prior, because I'll get distracted and not make it sometimes. But if I have it in the afternoon, I'm just laying in bed awake at night, just going nuts. My mind racing, impossible to fall asleep. I don't know why that changed.
Yeah, it's something about getting older, man. I don't know what it is. Everything has changed for me. Not everything, but a lot of things have changed for me after 30. I still eat a lot, but I used to eat like an inhuman amount of food. Like
it's fun.
It is, but I mean, like it was really insane.
Yeah.
I physically can't do it anymore.
Oh,
like,
right. Yeah.
I physically can't fit that much food into my stomach anymore. And I look back at some of the meals I used to eat on the regular, and I was like, how did I do that? I couldn't even do a quarter of that now. And it hit right at 30. Like, we used to go to this hamburger place every year with it's kind of a funny tradition. It's like my dad and his friend, like every Christmas, we would go with their family and go to this place called Calamity Jane's that you rest in peace. It's closed. But we would go there literally every year for Christmas. And ever since I was 12 years old, I'd get the Trail Boss, which is their massive hamburger. I don't even know how big it is. It's like well over a pound of all kinds. It's insane. Like it's huge. Like my dad could never eat it. That's how big it was.
Wow.
And I got it every year. And every year everybody'd be looking at me like, is this the year he's not going to be able to eat it? Is this the year he's not going to be able to eat it? And when I hit 30, that was the year I could no longer eat it. I mean, I would eat this thing no problem. I would be done with it and eat onto the deep fried mushrooms by the time most people had half theirs gone.
Yeah.
And it was like a light switch. It wasn't a gradual thing. It was like, uh-oh. And now I'm looking at that and going like, what other kinds of things are going to... That's not really a big problem. That's not really an issue. That's just like me not being able to do something I shouldn't have been doing in the first place.
Right, yeah.
And now I'm like, what's going to break on me when I crest 35? What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm noticing more and more just body issues that pop up, just muscle tightness and stuff like that. It's a pain. I had a huge back issues a few years ago that I got injured at. I was working with this dude and I tried to catch a box that was actually empty, but it just like jerked my back weird for some reason when I was bracing for it. And it screwed me up so bad. I needed help like standing up and sitting down. And I tried everything, physical therapy and massage and all that stuff, and nothing seemed to work. And then I got into, exercising and actually trying to be fit and healthy, and started rock climbing, and it like fixed me up. So like got me like 99% back to normal. Like my back feels great now. I have more core muscles and all that crap. And then when all that stuff closed last year, all the gyms are still closed around here. Right back to feeling like super tight in my shoulders and my neck. And I'm like, God, I'm only 35. Like this feels like a 60-year-old's problem. What the hell's going on?
Yeah, that was a big issue for a lot of people, and myself included. The gym is where I go to just blow off steam. Like,
yeah,
this is, and I put on some sort of ridiculous hardcore thing in my headphones and just go crazy.
Yeah,
and not having that in 2020 was, I went for several months, and I finally was like, I don't care. I know exercise equipment is way overpriced right now, but I am going to buy some. And so, yeah, I've got a power rack and everything on my back porch now, much to the annoyance of my family. But I'm like, hey, you don't like dad when he doesn't go to the gym.
Yeah, I know. That was tough for me because I can't do it. I can't stand just doing the normal gym routine. I have to be in a more social kind of environment, and it's weird to talk to people at the gym when you're doing that stuff. That's why I got into the indoor rock climbing and stuff, because it's a very social thing.
Mhm.
So I don't like doing it outside as much, just because I don't know. I just don't. And so that's been it. Yeah, I've gained like 30 pounds in a year just because I stopped working out and doing all that.
Yeah, I started off 2020. I really like lifting, and I like going heavy.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm gonna squat 500 this year. Like, I'm finally gonna do it. That super didn't happen.
Oh.
Because I was I had a plan. I was starting from a good place. I was like, yeah, this is doable. And yeah, now I'm almost back to where I was at the beginning of 2020, and I'm like, okay, maybe 2021 is the year of
Well,
500.
look at it this way. You didn't squat the 500, but really what's more, squatting 500 or getting through 2020 and squatting the weight of the world and a pandemic and all that stuff. So really, you exceeded your goals.
This is a good way to put it. Yeah, we had the firestorm, we had the ice storm.
Dude,
yeah,
the firestorm. I'm getting ready for that again. Are you ready?
See, we don't deal with that here. That's not a thing that happens in the Willamette Valley. That is the first time that's ever happened in my lifetime. It was actually the first time it's ever happened in my grandpa's life, and he's 80. So yeah, everyone's like, "Oh yeah, you're used to that, right?" I'm like, "No. We don't do that here. That's not a thing that we do."
Us too. I mean, the last 4 or 5 years, it's been crazy and become kind of normal now. So that's really weird. But like, I had a friend move out from Virginia, and she said, so she's lived here for like 4 years now. So she's seen the fires every year. And she's like, yeah, so nobody told me when I was moving to California that you guys have to deal with these crazy fires. Like, have you just had to deal with this like your whole life? And I was like, God, no, this is weird. It doesn't normally happen this bad. There'll be, little fires here and there, but oh my God, the last 4 years have been insane. I have a crazy video I'll send you. When I moved up from the Bay Area up to the Sacramento area last year, it was right in the middle of fire season, and I had to drive up Highway 80, and it was insane. There was literally a part where like a half an hour before that, my friend and my girlfriend took a load from our old house to our new house. And they were like, oh, there's some flames like up on the hill in the distance. It was kind of crazy to see. And they got home, they got to the new place just fine. I was a half an hour behind them, and I was driving through, and traffic became deadlocked to a dead stop because through Vacaville, there's building fires started bursting out. So I was like driving along the highway, and like a tree on the side of the highway is just burst into flames. And I came up to this huge black smoke. The police were there and the fire people were there. They were kind of guiding everyone on the highway into one line. And we got up to this huge flame across the freeway, and all this black smoke, like opaque smoke. And the cops are just like waving people, like, go through it. You have to go through it. And people are looking at the flames and looking at the cops, like, and then they just gas it and just bounce through it. And
wow.
I had to do that, but I recorded the whole thing because I was on the phone with my girlfriend. So I'll send you that video if you're interested. It's insane.
Oh man, it was so bizarre. And I mean, it just looks like the sky is red, and it just looks like we're all about to, I'm like, I live in Oregon.
Yeah.
I live in the green, lush, wet, supposedly Willamette Valley. What is going on right now? And it's like, oh yeah, climate change.
It's insane.
Interesting.
Oh, I know. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think I've heard of this before.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, I mean, I used to work in the petroleum industry, and like that wasn't necessarily a popular thing to talk about.
Right.
But I was like, hey, guys, ever since I've been working here, we've had a snow event of some sort, sometimes major, sometimes minor, but we've had a snow event of some sort in Portland every year. When
Pretty
I was growing
crazy.
up, we
Yeah.
never had snow.
No.
Never. And I'm like, I'm just saying, once it's happened for 7+ years in a row, something might be going on. I'm just throwing it out there.
Maybe,
Like,
maybe someone should check on this.
maybe there's something to this.
Yeah. Did you see it was terrible. And I hate to make any kind of joke about it at all, but it's very ironic. Did you see what happened to Paradise, California?
I did not.
The whole town is like gone.
What?
Yeah. Paradise last year. I think it was last year or the year before. I think it was Paradise because I remember it being ironic. Paradise, California just burned to the ground. Like the whole town is gone. It's terrible for all those people, but holy crap. Like what an ironic, like photo or image. Like it's just seeing that welcome to paradise and everything's on fire. It's insane.
It's like out of a movie.
Yeah.
I'm starting to wonder if we're in a movie. I think maybe we're in a movie.
I've thought that before.
Simulation.
Just weird. When I would go on my weird existential death trips, it was just like, is this all even real? Like, is this?
So I've definitely like explored the simulation theory.
Oh yeah.
In my brain and with others before, and I've come to the conclusion, because a lot of people really spend a lot of time on it, right? I've come to the conclusion that it doesn't matter.
Like, that's how I ultimately got out of all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's just the thing. It's like, I was like, well, I'm like, hypothetically, I could see how it's possible. And I could also see that fitting in with, a lot of people's beliefs and viewpoints. Maybe not in the way that they think it does, but it actually like pencils. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's simulation.
Right. Do you watch Rick and Morty or?
I don't.
Oh, okay. Rick and Morty, another one, just like South Park. Inappropriate fart jokes, all the funny, controversial stuff. Crazy deep messages. Such an intelligent show. It's so crazy. But
Are you sure? Because all I've seen is that it's a pickle. And I'm like, I don't care about those being a pickle.
That's a great episode too. That's an awesome episode. It took me a long time to get into that show. Everyone told me to watch it, and because I like off the wall humor and stuff like that. And I tried to watch the pilot a few times, and it was just so over the top, just like this drunk dude, and it's just like, but the pilot is so much different than the rest of the show that once I actually started watching a couple episodes, I was like, holy crap, this is really good. And there's one episode where Rick takes Morty to his grandson to this like interdimensional casino or arcade or whatever, and they pop on what is the name of it? Sorry, 1 second. I'm trying to remember. Damn. But the grandson pops on this video game, and it's a dude's name. It's like
a real video game? Like in real life, or it's just in the show?
No. In the show, it's just a game at the arcade. And man, I'm at a deadlock because I'm trying to remember the name. It's called like Ron or something. Like, let's just call it Ron. And Morty pops it on, and he enters the simulation of this dude Ron's life, like from birth all the way to the end, and like goes through like like high school heartbreak and like not being able to get the job he wants, and then finding the girl he loves, and
it's Roy.
Getting Roy, yeah, Roy.
I had to Google it.
Thank you, yeah. And he he gets married, he takes over his jobs at the in-laws like carpet store, and then he dies, and and then he pops out of the game, and he's so confused. He's like, what the hell? Like, where's my wife? Like, and he basically like lived this whole life in this simulation, and that's a super funny episode. That's what that reminded me of. It's way funnier than the way I just told it. So go watch it.
Yeah, maybe us. Maybe we'll take the. I forget which pill it is.
Yeah, pill. Maybe we're a bunch of Roys.
Yeah,
just living in some weird simulation. That's what my cousin Eric that died. He used to say that when we were in middle school. He was like, "I bet we're just a weird like aliens alien kids science project. We're probably at a science fair in some other dimension right now. Like
we're like the Matrix, where we're just a bunch of batteries.
Yeah.
We're just batteries. That's all we are.
It's weird.
I think as a kid, I was like, oh, boo on who was it? Which one went back in? I forget his name. Cypher? Was that the guy? Yeah. I was like, boo on him. He went back in, like, lame. And now as an adult, I'm like, minus the whole betraying your friends thing. I'm still not on board with that. But like, I get why you wanted to go back in.
Right.
Like, they're like, load me up, make me rich, make me have it. Like,
cool. Let's do it. I don't want to know any of this stuff. Ignorance is bliss for sure.
I know. Back in the system. I'm like, I'm a little more sympathetic to the guy these days.
Yeah, I know. We used to talk about all kinds of weird existential ideas like that when we were kids. It was funny. Like, I always used to say that, like, as a 17-year-old, I felt so cool. Like, as a 17-year-old, I was so ahead of the curve. We were into cool music and like did all this cool social stuff and like all these crazy mature ideas that we thought at the time. And then as a 27-year-old, I would look at my life and be like, man, I'm a piece of crap. Like, I'm still behind the curve. Like, I'm like fresh off jars, don't have a job, don't have this. Like, all my friends have surpassed me. And then now as a 35-year-old coming on to 37 soon, pretty awesome 37-year-old, I think I'm going to be here. So I've wrapped it back around.
You come full circle at last. Yeah. It's a weird thing thinking about like how you were when you were a kid, right? Because I think about myself back then, and if you would have asked me, I would have said that I think I'm a pretty nice guy, and I think I would have told you that I didn't think that I was cool. But when I look back and like think about how I behaved in certain contexts and situations, I was like, man, you weren't really that. You weren't what you thought you were.
Oh no.
You weren't nice in the way you were. I wasn't terrible. I wasn't like a bully or anything, but like you weren't quite as nice as you thought you were, and you weren't quite as cool as you thought you were. Even though if somebody would have came up and been like, do you think you're one of the cool guys? I would have said no. But like,
no, that's for lame people to say.
Yeah, exactly. I had this weird superiority complex with the music I listened to for no reason at all. It didn't make me a special butterfly or a special flower. There were hundreds of thousands of kids listening to the same exact stuff that I was all across the country. Yeah. And just because I didn't like Nickelback didn't make me any more influential or cool or smart.
Right. It's like, I don't matter. Like, I know, I think same thing. I think about it back then, and it's like, I look back on it, and like you said, I was a nice person. I was an okay person, but I was a judgmental dick. Like we all were. Our friends would, we all thought we were like the coolest. We, best taste in music. Like that means anything.
Mm-hmm. Right, like that matters. Who
like
cares?
That, like that's a value you should hold, like, up high.
Well, like that's actually going to get you anywhere.
Right.
It's like it's not going to get you more friends. It's not going to get you a better job, or
what it gets you is enjoyment out of the music you listen to. And who else gets that? Everybody else that likes the music that they like.
That's right. Now, that said, I will still criticize the Doors until my dying day. But that's just me.
Why the Doors?
I hate the Doors.
Oh, wow. That was like one of my first big ones.
Really?
Doors. I loved it.
The Doors are a weird one for me because, so let me step back a little bit. So the first time I heard like
great segue into a question I have for you, but go ahead.
Okay, cool. Riders on the Storm. I heard that song on the radio, on the classic rock radio.
All right.
And I didn't know who it was. I had no idea. I had no idea who it was. I was just like, this song sucks. I was like, I don't know what this is or who it's by, but I know I don't like it. And it's not just that song. I can't even remember off the top of my head all the Doors hits, but basically all of the hits, I would hear them sporadically on the radio, and I'd be like, I don't like this. What is this?
How old are you at this point?
Probably like 14, okay. 12 to 14.
All right.
And I got a little bit older and, started going to stores and doing things, myself. And somebody was like, oh yeah, you got to listen to the Doors. I'm like, all right, I'll listen to the Doors. And I put on the Doors. And I was like, this is that horrible stuff that I didn't like the first time I heard about it. I was like, this song sucks. This guy is a self-indulgent. Like I couldn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And then like the more I learned about them, the less I liked them. So like I'm just like, I'm glad people like it. It's not for me.
Yeah.
That's the point I've landed on.
I mean, I definitely think like growing up, yeah, I thought Jim Morrison was so cool, but thinking about it now, I'm like, what a dork.
Right.
So I see what you're saying. They have a soft spot for me just because, like I said, they were one of the first big ones for me. Like I always liked music growing up. When I was real young, I was really into like the Misfits and the Ramones and stuff like that. Like, early 70s, 80s punk. And I loved Danzig's voice. And my uncle, I think, showed me the Doors and was like, "Oh, check, this dude kind of sounds like this dude." And then I loved Jim Morrison's voice. Riders on Storm was never a favorite of mine, but I got deep into him, like because it was more musically expressive than the punch stuff I had been listening to. It was a little more complex. Now I listen to all the crazy stuff that I listen to now, and I'm like, God, that seems like such an elementary band, but they're not, there's good songs and bad songs. I don't listen to them nearly as much anymore. But I don't know, like I said, what a dork, but I think every musician that kind of takes himself seriously too much, it kind of comes off as a dork, and that's fine. You can be a dork. That's good.
No, that's fine. I mean, I'm definitely a dork.
Oh yeah.
There's no arguing with this.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. I mean, people listen to this podcast. They know I'm not very smart or cool. I'm just a guy that talks on the internet. That's all I am.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I've just learned a lot of things that people seem to like over the years. So like,
well, that's more constructive than what I've been doing.
Right. So I had a question here. I had it on my notes in case we lost track, but we never did. But since we're talking about music, I've been asking people this lately. If you had to live with one decade of music and you couldn't listen to anything else from any other decade, which would you choose?
All right. If you need the answer to that question, you can find it in the very next bonus episode that is right in your feed behind this one. Or if you're listening on the website, it's the next post. You can find it. It's part 2 of my chat with Mr. Charles Henry from Silktone Amps. And we get into a lot of random musical stuff on this next section. So a lot of just music nerds talking about music nerd things. And it was a lot of fun. So hopefully you enjoyed these bonus episodes. I like putting out the extra content when I can. And I super enjoyed this conversation with Charles. And I really like his amps. Go check out his amps. I'm using it all over my music right now. It sounds just incredible. And he's a great dude. Deserves some support. So go check his amplifiers out. Silktone Amps. Give him a follow on the socials and all that jazz. All right. On to part 2. And hope you enjoy. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.